friend pen, write simple prose.
One of the very sticky questions I have to ask you, you have 300 physicians under you, and I have to say this, that I have been through a lot of institutions in America. And one of the unfortunate aspects of medical training is that it's extremely competitive. And physicians are not trained to work in a team. How do you go about modifying that type of behavior from a physician's viewpoint?
Sure. One of the reasons why I went to Kaiser Permanente when I finished my residency was that I really believed that the task of the physician is to maximize the health of the patients for whom they treat. And that the incentives in Kaiser, which is essentially the subscriber paying the dues, and the physician along with the member figuring out how to maximize that healthcare dollar, is what medicine should be about. I think that the evolution of the American populace has been towards that point of view. And that from that standpoint, the first thing in Kaiser Permanente is some degree of a common vision. I think that we all agree that our job as physicians working together is to maximize that health care. And so we don't start by being competitors in the same way that a community of physicians, each of whom has a separate office. Each time a patient goes to one office, they're not going to someone else's office. So in that sense, I'm very fortunate. I have a job where I have a camaraderie, where I have a group of physicians that have a common mission. And I think that that's the first thing. I think the second aspect is to develop that common vision. And if everyone can agree on what quality outcomes are, then people are much more likely to agree that this is the way to achieve it. I think the third thing is that the personal financial incentive is much less in our organization. And so the willingness to read the literature, to look at the literature, to talk about experiences, and to come up with best practices is something that's much easier to foster in my environment than it is for some of my colleagues in the community.
I have to go back to that aspect again, because as I mentioned earlier, unfortunately I have noticed that the training of physician has not fostered the qualities such as humility, adaptability, and flexibility. There are a lot of physicians who are very strong in defending their way of doing things. We know that for a fact that if you get a physician from Stanford or Harvard or Yale, they may practice a little bit differently, or very differently sometimes, but each one thinks that he has the best pathway or way of practicing. I still don't see how you can get people to sit down and say that, well, your way is better than mine, let's adopt yours. Is that something that has happened at Kaiser?
Well, I mean, certainly people are different, and differences of opinion are very, very valid. I think progressively, especially as we go to develop best pathways, there's a commonness of reading the literature together. One of the things physicians don't do in most places is read it together. If you and I sat down with an article and discussed it and asked ourselves the question, what do we agree on and what do we disagree on about this article? We'll agree on most things about it. We're both reasonably trained, common background individuals, and we'll have some of the same thoughts. That's a process that's much easier to foster in Kaiser Permanente at Santa Clara and in Kaiser Permanente across the whole region. And it's that sitting down together in a common department to look at that, where we may also disagree at the edges, but we're going to agree on the core. We're going to agree 90% of the way. And as long as we get that common agreement to the best pathway based upon the literature, then it's not your opinion or my opinion, it's our common opinion.
I think you're able to achieve that at Kaiser. That's great. I really applaud that, because I have not seen that throughout my career that have been achieved anywhere.